Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the three layers within our mind, within our levels of consciousness that are very important to know and very important to understand. And in my videos, my goal is to uncover layers within the unconscious self so that we can understand the deeper aspects of ourselves through understanding the collective unconscious, which is part of the archetypal references that I often talk about. If it's numerology, astrology, tarot, symbology of any kind, even body symbology, how we can go deeper within ourselves to understand these correlations that are embedded in the unseen aspects of ourself, because these are the aspects of ourself that are often hard to understand and reach and make sense of. But they are the most crucial aspects of ourselves for awakening, for understanding our wholeness, for becoming self-actualized, and for becoming our true authentic self. And our true authentic self is when we are in a state of being unshakable, when we know who we are, when we are confident in our own skin, in our voice, in what we are delivering to the world, or how we're showing up in the world, how we show up in relationships, what we want to create, and overcoming fears, understanding what fears are, because those fears are embedded deep within the unconscious. So when we understand these aspects within ourselves, we will be able to walk through these layers easier and easier and easier over time. Therefore, of course, understanding ourselves even more. When we understand ourselves more, we understand life more. We understand the universe more. We understand the great mysteries more. We understand our relationship with the universe and our ability, again, to co-create and to manifest in ways like never before. So let's get into this. So I'm going to go into the different layers of the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the conscious mind, these aspects that are in our mind that have a very strong role to play in our daily functioning. Now, it has a role to play in our unconscious motivations and behaviors and emotions and thoughts. It also has a very strong role in how we can identify how we are behaving and acting and what we're saying. And therefore, when we see the components within ourselves, we become more aware and we lessen the impact of our unconscious, irrational desires or motivations, becoming more aligned and more in sync with life. All right, so we're going to go into the unconscious mind first. My favorite aspect, like I said, when you understand your unconscious, when you work with your unconscious, this is where your answers lie. And I'm sure you've heard this before, but it is true. This is what you have to walk through in order to become more of yourself, in order to free yourself, in order to liberate yourself, in order to become more whole and self-actualized. And this is going to take you through the process of awakening as well. We have to go through this layer within ourselves, or this level, this deep level within ourselves, to understand the innermost workings of ourself. So first, the unconscious is the deepest layer of the mind, containing repressed emotions, instincts, and primitive drives, often inaccessible to direct awareness. As I mentioned, the unconscious is the trickiest part of ourself. This is where we can suppress our traumas, our emotions. This is where deeply ingrained patterns will reside as well, that will drive our motivators, will inspire action, will create some kind of response, if it is verbally, mentally, emotionally, in our body as well. This is the deepest aspect of ourself. It's actually also located in the brain stem, so the instinctual process. The role is that it governs deep-seated beliefs, instincts, and unresolved trauma. The positive traits, our unconscious is connected with our intuition, also known as the psyche, deep creativity, survival instincts. The challenging traits are the unprocessed traumas, irrational fears, and limiting beliefs. And if you're noticing some of my videos starting to go live, I am also talking about the body, the physical manifestations that are connected to our unconscious beliefs, those beliefs that we can't see, but they're there. How to access the unconscious mind is going to be through deep observation, self-awareness, being aware of some of the behaviors and patterns that you're finding yourself stuck in. This is going to require an incredible amount of self-awareness to observe yourself from an outside perspective, constantly shifting your perception. When you shift your perception on yourself, you're going to see more of yourself. You're going to notice patterns and habits that you may have been used to that might not be in alignment with your true authentic self, your soul, your highest self, your highest good. These patterns and habits could get in the way of achieving goals, falling in love, finding peace and harmony with your life, and trusting the universe and trusting life itself. It is very important to create a great deal of self-awareness with this aspect. Now, it is a bit difficult to understand the unconscious. Another way can be through symbolism, working with tools like the tarot, for example, numerology, astrology, to understand the archetypal references within your life and how they impact your behaviors, your experiences, and your relationships. So you can work with symbology. Also, of course, dream analysis is going to be very important. If you dream, make sure you keep a dream journal on hand. If you have visions, make sure you are jotting them down on paper and take time to reflect. Spending time alone is crucial for this work. If we find ourselves in a distracted life, if we're constantly on, if we're constantly working, if we're constantly distracted, if we're looking at our phone, if we're being bombarded by information that we are constantly affected by, then we are not connecting with ourselves. We're going to miss a lot of information within ourselves. Thus, of course, the separation of self will remain until we turn those outside influences off or dim them down and reflect inward and starting to connect inward. The inward journey is the most powerful journey you can ever go through or you can ever embark on. When we are disconnected from ourselves, we continually look at the outside world as for quick fixes, for the solutions to maybe our problems or deeper issues. We also look to the outer world for distractions, which separates ourselves more from our deeper self. It separates ourselves from our heart, the connection with our heart. It separates ourselves from the connection with our emotions. It separates us from the connection with our body. And right in the center of that is the unconscious. And if we're not aware of how the unconscious is playing into our life, we will keep in these perpetual modes of unhealthy patterns and thoughts and relationships. Again, the unconscious is where repressed, suppressed, dormant traumas, repressed memories, emotions, and very difficult beliefs, limiting beliefs reside. And if you want to access the unconscious even further, you can work with a specialist. You can work with someone who can see what you can't see, being able to connect the dots for you and being able to shine light on certain aspects that you can't see within yourself. I also do have the Shadow Project, which is going to be launching in 2025, the next edition. If you are interested in exploring your unconscious, your shadow aspect, which also is part of the unconscious self, then join the Shadow Project. I'm creating a lot of material. There will be guidance as well to understand your deeper self and break patterns while also shining light on this very valuable aspect of your being. Next, we're going into the subconscious mind. So the subconscious mind is the layer of the mind just below the conscious awareness, storing habits, emotions, memories, and learned behaviors. The subconscious mind is very connected with both the conscious and the unconscious. It's a bit of that in-between state where we can start to see our patterns, our behaviors. We can make sense of our inner workings by ourselves. When we start to shine light, when we have those moments of illumination with aspects of ourselves, then that is where we are bringing it into the subconscious, then moving it into the conscious level of awareness. So in that state in between is the layers that we can identify on our own, where we can probe into and reflect into and maybe shift our perceptions on our reality to see ourselves a bit differently. That is where we're going to access that subconscious level. It's going to be easier to access the subconscious than the unconscious, but the subconscious also does hold a lot of limiting beliefs, and it can also inspire unconscious behaviors or subconscious behaviors. They could be very correlated in the way that we are behaving and acting and talking, speaking, the relationships that we might find ourselves in, our relationship with the outer world, how we see and perceive life, or maybe over intellectualize. So the subconscious is going to be probably the easiest layer to work through. It's probably going to be also your gateway into the unconscious if you're doing this work. So the role of the subconscious is it influences automatic reactions and emotional responses, bridging the conscious and the unconscious. Some positive traits are that it will help build positive habits and emotional resilience. The challenging traits can be negative patterns, emotional triggers, and self-sabotage. So you can think of the subconscious as an area within yourself where you can integrate new habits, where you can look at old habits and you can start to rewrite them with new habits. This supercomputer that we have in our brain, the unconscious and the subconscious especially, is almost a computer system. You can think of it that way, where it becomes very hardwired. We become very fixed in our functioning, in our ways of looking at the world, in our ways of reacting to life, and in how we feel about ourselves. It becomes so hardwired that it's hard to even realize or recognize within ourselves, driving our deepest motivations and desires. When we understand these aspects of ourselves, when we can look within and observe, we are going to become more aware. This is where we get to expand our consciousness and we get to see more about ourselves and the true scope of reality. This will allow you to awaken to yourself like never before. This is the deepest work that you can do for yourself and for your life. So, the subconscious, again, is the area where you can integrate new habits. You can work on rewiring old habits, integrating maybe affirmations, new belief systems. This will help you access the unconscious as well by going into this level of your mind. The location in the brain is actually the limbic system, so including the hippocampus for memory and the amygdala for emotions. Now, the conscious mind is what you're going to be most familiar with. I also have to mention, in our modern society, we have become naturally very separated from our unconscious mind and more active in our conscious mind. The conscious mind is the part of the mind that we are actively aware of, responsible for logic, reasoning, and decision making. Now, unfortunately, in modern society, we have become very overactive in our conscious mind, separating ourselves from our subconscious and definitely our unconscious. I would say there's a very small amount, small percentage of people in this world who actually work with their unconscious mind. The majority of people in humanity operate from their conscious mind, their conscious level of awareness, but it becomes so strong that we're used to overanalyzing, overthinking, over-rationalizing, making sense, proving, controlling, and having to make sense of everything that we have lost sight of our other aspects of ourself, of our mind, the subconscious and the unconscious. Now, there's a lot happening in society with growth mindset and integrating positive habits, habit integration, which does access the subconscious, but the unconscious takes us even deeper into ourself. It takes us even deeper, but it takes us even higher in the same. It's like the shadow. We need to go through the dark to get to the light. That is basically what the unconscious allows us to do, is exercise this unseen, beautiful, powerful part of our being that has become extremely dormant in modern society. In modern society, a majority of society, I would say, are very hyperactive or overactive in the conscious mind. This is why it's very hard to turn our minds off, because we are operating on this one cylinder constantly, and it's hard to turn it off and drop into our deeper self. And also, it is very uncomfortable to access parts of ourselves in the unconscious that may trigger and activate emotions. Now, emotions become very suppressed when we are overactive in our conscious mind, when we're overthinking, when we have to make sense of everything, when our mind is constantly on. We are literally turning off our senses. We're turning off the connection with our intuition, with our emotions, with our heart, and with our deeper self, thus, of course, the unconscious. So this is a byproduct of society where we have become, but we have an opportunity now to access our deeper selves if we choose to do so. The role of the conscious mind is that it processes current thoughts, perceptions, and deliberate actions. The positive traits are logical thinking, focus, and creativity. Challenging traits are overthinking and analysis paralysis. For positive traits, creativity, I have to also preface, it's only part of creativity. We get to create by being aware of what we want to build, what we want to create, what we want to establish in our reality. However, Creativity also comes from our unconscious, and this is the split of how deep do you want to go when you want to create. And speaking from experience, since I have accessed my unconscious and I actively work with my unconscious, my creative abilities and my clarity and flow of ideas have gotten so much better. It is a whole different way of functioning and being in this world when we access our unconscious. It does take a great deal of returning to our feelings and our senses to understand where we have created the disconnect and how we can regain this new relationship or a relationship with our deeper selves. Thus, of course, awakening our senses, accessing our emotions, accessing our heart, and being able to create even more. So creativity will be part of the conscious mind, being actively creative, but it will only be so deep or so shallow, depending on where you are in your journey and your path when you are creating. Of course, you probably realize that the most provocative music artists, visual artists have created from the place of pain and hurt or emotional turmoil or change or happiness or joy or love. When we can access these parts of ourselves and connect with them, the way that we create is going to be that much more profound. And the location in the brain is the prefrontal cortex, responsible for higher order thinking and decision making. So I hope this sheds some light on these three valuable aspects that we have within our mind to work with. Remembering the unconscious is part of our whole self, and it will allow us to return to that state of wholeness. Also remembering that our conscious mind has been the dominating force in our reality for many lifetimes. And we are now returning to the place where we can connect with ourselves more. I do feel the unconscious, the shadow, the psyche, for example, our intuition, are going to be the new zeitgeist, moving into a new theme, a new flavor of a next way of being. So if you are interested in understanding your unconscious, your subconscious, join the Shadow Project. This is going to be a 2025 launch. It's going to be a new community, a new version, and I hope to see you there. The link is going to be below. I'm wishing you all the best on your journey and beyond. Take care.